Hello, so this video is traveling with Kyle, Peru. So when I left off, I got done with the Inca Trail. So then I go back to Cuzco and I fruitsy go back to my hotel room. It's a cool hotel because they had these movies in this like movie theater place upstairs every night, you know, and then stuff. And I was like right near some little really narrow pedestrian kind of area just north of the Central Plaza where there's lots of Mexican restaurants, and I'm all into Mexican food, so I was eating all the different Mexican restaurants, and I think they even had like margaritas or something. And then they also had this weird place, I've never actually been to a place like that, north side of the plaza, where you could like grab a movie and then go into a certain room and watch it. So I did that a couple times, you know. And you know, I was back on, thank God I didn't bring my marijuana cookies on my trip. I wanted to take a couple days off. But then I started eating them again when I came back, you know, and that's when I kind of started to realize that I was starting to like lose my mind and lose my body as well. Like I couldn't get up earlier than 12. I was like in comatose before 12. It started to kind of, you know, get a hold of my body and turn me into like melted wax kind of. But I still did some other stuff, you know. I rode my bicycle up to Sacsayhuaman, which is on the Central Plaza of Cuzco, even though it's a big city. The Central Plaza of Cuzco is right on the edge of this really steep hill that goes up, and on the top of that hill is Sacsayhuaman, which is this big wall, a couple hundred meters long, that it's jagged. Like if you look at it from space, it's like a jaguar mouth, and you know, you can't tell from on the ground, but if you look at it from space, it looks like an open jaguar, and the teeth with the jaguar mouth, those are these walls of Sacsayhuaman. And when the Spanish came, they tried to take it apart, and they could only take 4/5 of it apart, but they couldn't take the rest of it apart because the stones were so big. The stones were about as big as this room. They're like 300 tons each, and you had them stacked up on top of each other. Perfectly stacked, perfectly placed, you know, and some of them even had like different, you know, angulars that were putting in there, and there's no way that we could probably even do that today. We could probably move those stones, but probably only a couple of feet, so it's a mystery of how they put it there. I have my own theories, but that's another video. I even took a photo of my bicycle next to this stone, you know, to show how big they were, and it's just gigantic. I mean, you're talking stones 10 feet high or whatever, and then other ones just as big on top of it, and hundreds of them. And so, yeah, and it was on the edge of this big open field, which they would have, you know, my Inca ceremonies and stuff. And then there was another level of the jaguar teeth. It was kind of like multiple jaguar teeth, kind of like maybe sharks' layered teeth or something. So then it was cool. You go on the second level and you go up these really steep hills, steep stairs. And they even had some like little really steep, like this steep, of like stairs you could sit on with a little plaza thing in the middle. So maybe they had all sorts of different like classrooms, maybe you could call them. I don't know. But and then on the other side of the valley of that little field, up on the top, they had these terraced, kind of like Olympic stadium, you know, where they give them the Olympic gold medals. You'd have the top and then the bottom. But they were carved in granite, and they were carved perfectly flat. Like 6 feet wide, and then another one 6 feet wide into the granite. Perfectly flat. Cut 90-degree angles. How the fuck is an Indian going to do that? Even with a metal saw. No, I'm talking laser technology. Anyways, go and look at it next time you go there. I took a photo of that too, my bike on it. And it reminded me of what I saw in El Tajín, the northernmost Mayan ruin in Mexico, right near, just south of Tampico. So anyways, then I rode my bike a little bit, you know, further down the road, and there was this other ruins. That was interesting. It was like all these cut rocks. It was like the quarry, I guess, where they got certain rocks to build, you know, all the different stones and stonework and stuff that they had. And then I went down a little bit farther, and there was a beautiful ruin. See, there was Incan ruins all over the place. You could ride around, and I only went to a few of them. I didn't go to all of them because I ended up freaking out and leaving Cuzco before. I should have stayed in Cuzco longer than I was, though, a lot longer. Anyways, I went to this other one, and it was beautiful. It was kind of like they had like a natural waterfall that they had like made there, and I can't remember much else, but yeah, beautiful ruins. And there was even another ruin that had huge stones and stuff. And I saw a ruin as I was riding outside of Cuzco that has huge stones, but I didn't actually stop and look at it and stuff for some reason. Maybe I had to pay, I don't know. But yeah, so then, and I also did the tour of Cuzco. They have a tower you can go to the top of and look around. And I did the tour of all the different, you know, the churches and stuff. Every South American city, no matter how big or small, has a central square. And the Spanish, if it was an Incan town, and Cuzco was the Incan capital, they would build their churches right on top of the Incan church, kind of like to say nanny nanny boo boo to them or something like that. And I checked out the Spanish church, it was pretty, and then some other museums around there. So I locked my bicycle. This is how fucked up I was on this marijuana, dude. Talking like a month straight of just eating, having breakfast, lunch, dinner, marijuana cookies. I locked my bike with like a really cheap $3 Peruvian lock. Should have learned my lesson. Maybe it was. No, this time I was using a good lock. But I locked my bike to the little, you know, metal hook things that would keep, I guess, the rodents away or dogs from jumping on top of the flowers, because they had some nice flowers in the central plaza there. And then I went and I did my tour for like 6 hours of the city, of all the, you know, pedestrian style. And then I came back and I noticed that I locked my bicycle to itself, and my bicycle was just laying down in the middle of the grass, a couple feet away from where I locked it. So maybe somebody dragged it or something, or even rode my bike around town and put it back. But my bike for 6 hours, with thousands of tourists walking back and forth, thousands of Peruvian street vendors walking right over it, was just laying there in the grass, not locked up to anything, with a lock around the top tube. And I'm like, whoa, I'm a lucky ass motherfucker. So I get that bike, and I was like, woo, I'm going wicked. But yeah, Cuzco is interesting. I heard there's lots of like tunnels and stuff underneath that just go for hundreds of miles, and all this stuff that are secret and stuff. You know, the Incans kept it secret. And then I saw it was like the main Incan temple church in Cuzco. It was a few blocks south of the main central square. And that was a Spanish temple, a Spanish church. And the Spaniards, like I said, built their church right on top of the Incan church. And so there had the Incan wall, which was built out of granite, volcanic granite, really hard stone, that was perfectly straight. The most beautiful, perfectly straight thing, with stones stacked up on top of each other. And you could see the stones were glued together by some kind of mortar. And they were even sometimes a little bit kind of moved apart from all the hundreds of years of earthquakes here and then. And then you have on top of that, and then next to it on the Spanish church, the stones that the Spaniards made. And you know, you could tell the Spaniards did their utmost to emulate what the Incans did. They cut the stones perfectly square and placed them on top. You know, much better stonework than the churches you'd see in Europe. You know, churches you'd see in Europe are like, you know, round stones kind of thrown together. But these guys were like, let's do it like the Incans. And it was nothing as good as the Incans. The stones they used were cut with like metal, you know, iron saws or whatever. So they were square and everything, but they weren't cut with lasers like the Incans were. I mean, they were cut so perfectly that they were like polished flat. You could slide naked on your butt down the face of those stones, 100 feet, you know, on top of water and not chafe at all. That's how perfectly they were. Anyway, so I go into the church, and they still had the Incan walls, and you could tell the Spanish were, you know, amazed by that, because they didn't dismantle those walls. They were like, keep them, it's amazing, keep them so we can try and copy it. And they had a cool little central plaza there. Then I saw some other stuff in Cuzco, and I guess hung out with some people or whatever, but then I finally left without seeing all the ruins, which I should, but I didn't. And I was like, at that point, I was like, dude, I am fucking wacky tobacco. I think it's time for me to like start riding my bike again, maybe get my blood flowing some. So I decided to ride my bike down towards Lake Titicaca. From Cuzco is the capital of the Incan Empire, and I think they went south and north. They went as far south as Santiago, as a matter of fact. One of the Santiago main avenues now, called La Paz, I think, actually was a road built by the Incans, and that's about as far south that they went before the... can't remember what the other Indians there kind of took over, the ones that paint themselves. And they went as far north as Quito. Quito was an Incan city, so they extended thousands of miles, maybe 2,000 miles or something like this. So anyway, yeah, I head towards Lago de Titicaca, and that's another video though.